In 1987, a woman in Tulsa, Oklahoma, made $11,000 in 1 year selling hand-painted mailboxes from her garage. No storefront, no employees, no business degree. She ran the whole operation from a folding card table next to the water heater. Number 14 on this list was technically illegal in 3 states until 2016, but people did it anyway because the money was too good to ignore. And number 7 created an entire underground economy that the IRS still struggles to track. These are not get-rich-quick schemes or internet fantasies. These are real tricks real Americans used to put real money in their pockets without ever leaving their property. Before we start, hit that subscribe button because some of these might change the way you think about your spare room, your kitchen, and your backyard. Let us count down. Number 20. Ironing and pressing services. Before permanent press fabrics hit department stores in the mid-1960s, ironing was a full-time occupation. Housewives across the South and Midwest hung signs in their front windows offering pressing services at 10 cents a shirt, 15 cents for trousers. A woman with a good steam iron and a sturdy board could press 40 shirts in an afternoon. That was $4, roughly $35 in today's money, earned without leaving the kitchen. The smell of starch and hot cotton filled the house from Monday to Friday. Neighbors dropped off bundles and paper bags before work and picked them up after supper. In Black communities especially, pressing became a reliable income stream when other doors were shut. Census records from 1950 show thousands of women listing their occupation as laundress, working exclusively from home. The work was hot and monotonous, but the money was steady. When wrinkle-free shirts arrived, the ironing boards folded up, and a quiet economy vanished overnight. But for decades, a strong arm and a sharp crease meant grocery money every single week. Number 19. Selling eggs from backyard chickens. The backyard chicken coop was America's original side hustle. In 1945, nearly 40% of American households kept at least a few hens. A dozen eggs sold for about 60 cents at the back door, and a healthy flock of 12 birds could produce 8 to 10 eggs a day. That was steady pocket money, enough to cover flour, sugar, and coffee for the week. Farm wives in Iowa and Indiana built entire household budgets around egg money. The coins went into mason jars on the top shelf, untouched by husbands, quietly funding everything from children's shoes to Christmas presents. The term egg money became shorthand for a woman's independent income, small but entirely her own. Suburban zoning laws killed most backyard flocks by the 1970s, but the trick never fully died. Today, fresh eggs sell for $5 to $7 a dozen at farmers' markets. The math still works. A flock of 15 hens, fed on table scraps and cheap feed, can generate $300 a month in egg sales. Your great-grandmother figured this out 80 years ago. Before outsourcing moved piecework overseas, American companies shipped assembly jobs directly to kitchen tables. In the 1960s and the 1970s, manufacturers paid housewives to stuff envelopes, assemble small products, and package novelty items. A woman in suburban Detroit could earn 2 to 3 cents per envelope, stuffing 500 in an evening while watching television. That was $10 to $15 a night. Real money when a gallon of milk cost $1. Companies advertised in the back pages of women's magazines, promising flexible hours and no experience necessary. The trick was volume. Fast hands and a system meant the difference between beer money and bill money. Some families turned it into a group effort, children folding inserts while mom sealed and stacked. The work was tedious and the pay was thin. But it asked nothing of the worker except time, and time was the one thing stay-at-home mothers had in controlled supply. The scheme was eventually overrun by scams promising thousands for minimal effort. But the original assembly work was real, and it kept lights on in thousands of American homes. Number 17. Renting a spare room to boarders. Taking in a boarder was as American as apple pie, and twice as practical. In 1940, census data show that nearly 1 in 10 American households included at least one paying lodger. A spare bedroom fetched anywhere from $15 to $30 a month, enough to cover a mortgage payment in most towns. Landladies provided a clean bed, breakfast, and sometimes an evening meal, running what amounted to a miniature hotel from their own hallway. In college towns, this became an industry. Widows in Ann Arbor and Chapel Hill rented rooms to students for decades, supplementing Social Security with steady monthly checks. The rules were strict. No visitors after 9 o'clock, no drinking, no noise on Sundays. But the arrangement worked for both sides. The boarder got affordable housing, and the homeowner got financial security without punching a clock. Airbnb did not invent this trick. Your grandmother did. She just did not need an app to do it. Number 16. Baking and selling bread and pies. The kitchen table bakery fed American neighborhoods long before commercial bakeries dominated every strip mall. Housewives in rural communities baked 6 to 10 loaves of bread a week, selling the extras to neighbors for a quarter apiece. Pies brought even better margins. A pecan pie made with 75 cents worth of ingredients sold for $3 at the church social. That was pure profit, earned between breakfast dishes and school pickup. In Appalachian communities, baking was survival economics. Women traded loaves for goods they could not afford to buy. A pie might pay for a child's haircut. 2 dozen dinner rolls could settle a favor. The skill was the currency. You did not need capital or equipment beyond what already sat in your kitchen. Cottage food laws, which now exist in all 50 states, formalized what American women had been doing informally for generations. The kitchen table bakery never really disappeared. It just got a permit. Neighborhood daycare operated on handshakes and trust long before licensing boards existed. A mother watching her own 3 children could take on 2 or 3 more for $10 to $20 a week per child in the 1970s. That was an extra $40 to $60 weekly for doing what she was already doing: feeding lunch, supervising naps, breaking up arguments over Tonka trucks. In working-class neighborhoods, one woman on the block became the unofficial daycare provider, her living room floor covered in toys and her kitchen counter lined with sippy cups. The children called her by her first name. The parents paid in cash every Friday. No invoices, no contracts, no overhead. The IRS rarely saw a dime of it, and nobody talked about it outside the neighborhood. This informal economy kept families functioning when commercial daycare cost more than one parent earned. And in many communities across America, it still does. First pattern break. Here is where things get interesting. While those first entries were about trading time for small but steady money, the next tricks required something different. They required noticing what other people needed and figuring out how to provide it without spending a cent on rent or inventory. Canning season turned American kitchens into production lines every August and September. Women who grew tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers in backyard gardens could preserve 60 to 100 jars in a single weekend. A pint of homemade strawberry jam cost about 30 cents to produce and sold for $2 at roadside stands. Pickles, relishes, salsa, and apple butter moved even faster. In some states, selling home canned goods was technically restricted by health regulations until cottage food laws began passing after 2010. But that did not stop anyone. Farm stands operated on the honor system, with mason jars lined up on wooden tables and a coffee can for cash. Grandmothers in Georgia and Tennessee built reputations on a single recipe. One woman's bread and butter pickles could fund an entire summer's worth of grandchildren's birthday presents. The trick was consistency. Regular customers came back every Saturday because they knew exactly what they were getting. No label required. The name on the mailbox was the brand. Number 13. Running a phone-based service from the kitchen. Before the internet democratized remote work, the telephone was the original work-from-home tool. In the 1980s and the 1990s, thousands of Americans ran service businesses using nothing but a landline, a notepad, and a listing in the yellow pages. Bookkeepers balanced accounts for small businesses without leaving the house. Medical transcriptionists typed doctor's notes at 70 words per minute from a desk in the spare bedroom. Freelance dispatchers coordinated deliveries for local courier companies from their kitchen phones. A woman in Phoenix built a $60,000 a year answering service business from her dining room in 1992, handling calls for 14 small businesses using 3 phone lines and a scheduling book. The startup cost was the price of a second phone line, about $30 a month. The overhead was coffee. When the internet arrived, it did not replace this trick. It multiplied it, but the original principle remained the same. If you could solve someone's problem using your voice and your brain, you did not need an office to earn a living. Number 12. Tutoring neighborhood kids. The retired school teacher who tutored kids at her kitchen table was a fixture of American neighborhoods for decades. She charged $5 to $10 an hour in the 1980s, working with 3 or 4 students each afternoon. That was $20 to $40 a day, 4 days a week, all cash, all undeclared, all earned within arm's reach of her own coffee pot. Parents preferred her to expensive tutoring centers because she knew the local curriculum, she knew the teachers, and she never rushed a session to fit a corporate schedule. Math was the biggest moneymaker. A child struggling with long division or algebra would come twice a week for months. The relationship was personal, the results were visible, and the word-of-mouth referrals were automatic. One family telling another that Mrs. Henderson got their son's grade from a D to a B was worth more than any advertisement. Today, online tutoring platforms charge $40 to $80 an hour. The kitchen table tutor was doing the same job for a fraction of the price and keeping every penny. Number 11. Garage sales and yard sales. The American garage sale is a $70 billion annual industry hiding in plain sight. A family clearing out a single garage could generate from $200 to $800 in a weekend. The trick was never about selling valuable items. It was about volume. Baby clothes for 50 cents each, paperback novels for a quarter, kitchen gadgets for $1. The real money came from furniture. A used couch bought for nothing at a relative's estate sold for $75 on the driveway. Power tools from a deceased uncle's workshop brought $50 to $100 apiece. Experienced sellers learned the calendar. Spring cleaning season in April and May drew the biggest crowds. Holiday weekends meant foot traffic. Signs on telephone poles still outperformed any digital listing for driving local buyers to your front lawn. Some families made it a seasonal ritual, spending 3 weekends a year selling accumulated household overflow, funding vacations entirely with the proceeds. No shipping, no fees, no middleman, just a card table, a cash box, and a Sharpie marker. Second pattern break. Controversy incoming. Now here is where it gets uncomfortable. The next few entries involve tricks that operated in gray areas, things everyone did but nobody discussed because the money was too useful to question. Number 10. Hairdressing from the kitchen. Unlicensed hairdressing from home was one of the most widespread informal economies in 20th century America. In black neighborhoods especially, the kitchen beautician was an institution. A woman with a hot comb, a pressing iron, and a jar of Royal Crown hair grease could serve 10 to 15 clients a week at $5 to $10 a head. That was $50 to $150 weekly, tax-free, earned in the same room where dinner was cooked 2 hours later. The kitchen smelled like bergamot and singed hair on Saturdays. Clients sat on a chair draped with a towel, catching up on neighborhood news while their stylist worked. No cosmetology license, no salon rent, no appointment book beyond a list on the refrigerator door. The skill was learned from mothers and aunties, passed down like a recipe. State licensing boards spent decades trying to shut these operations down, but they persisted because the service was needed and the price was right. Commercial salons charged 3 times as much and offered half the conversation. The kitchen beautician understood something corporate salons never will. People do not just pay for a haircut, they pay for the feeling of being known. Number 9. Selling scrap metal and recyclables. Before municipal recycling programs existed, Americans sorted their own trash and sold it. Aluminum cans brought 20 to 30 cents a pound at the scrapyard. Copper wire stripped from old appliances fetched $1.50 or more. A family that saved cans, newspapers, and scrap metal for a month could haul a truckload to the yard and walk away with $40 to $80. In rural areas, scrap collection became a business. Farmers accumulated old machinery, fencing wire, and broken appliances for years, then sold the lot when prices spiked. One retired factory worker in Ohio earned $6,000 a year through the 1990s just by collecting aluminum cans from his neighborhood on trash day. He walked 3 miles every Tuesday and Thursday morning with a rolling cart, sorting cans into bags in his garage. His neighbors thought he was eccentric. His bank account said otherwise. The trick required zero investment and zero skill beyond the willingness to pick up what other people threw away. Number 8. Sewing and alterations. The home seamstress was the original freelancer. A woman who could hem trousers, take in a waist, or repair a zipper never lacked for work. In the 1960s, alterations cost $1 to $3 per garment. A skilled seamstress working 4 hours a day could handle 8 to 10 jobs, earning $20 to $30 a day. Prom season and wedding season tripled the workload. A single bridesmaid dress alteration might cost $15 and take an hour. Multiply that by 6 bridesmaids, and you had a week's grocery money in an afternoon. The sewing machine sat in the spare bedroom or the corner of the living room, surrounded by pins, patterns, and measuring tape. Customers came to the front door, stood on a step stool for measuring, and picked up their finished garments 2 days later. The home seamstress survived longer than most cottage industries because the skill is genuinely difficult to automate. Machines can produce garments, but only a human hand can make one fit a specific body. That fact kept home seamstresses earning well into the 21st century. Number 7. Cash basis tax preparation. Every January through April, kitchen table tax preparers materialized across working-class America like crocuses in spring. A person with basic math skills and a copy of the current tax code could prepare simple returns for $20 to $50 each. In the 1980s, a quick preparer handling 5 returns a night could earn $100 to $250 in an evening, working 3 or 4 nights a week through tax season. That was $3,000 to $8,000 in 4 months, all from a dining room table. The clients were neighbors, co-workers, friends of friends. Word spread through churches and break rooms. The kitchen table preparer charged half of what H&R Block asked, and usually got bigger refunds because they took the time to ask about deductions the chain operations missed. The IRS eventually required preparers to register and obtain identification numbers, pushing some underground and others into legitimacy. But for decades, this seasonal hustle funded summer vacations, paid off Christmas credit cards, and proved that expertise did not require an office with a reception desk. Number 6. Running mail-order businesses from home. Long before e-commerce, Americans ran mail-order businesses from spare bedrooms and basement tables. Classified ads in the back of magazines like Popular Mechanics, Good Housekeeping, and Field and Stream cost $5 to $20 and reached millions of readers. A man in Kansas sold fishing lure kits for $3 each through a 2-line ad in 1974. He filled orders from his garage, packing each kit in a padded envelope and walking them to the post office every morning. In his best year, he moved 14,000 units. That was $42,000 in revenue from a garage workbench. The trick was finding a niche product that was cheap to produce, easy to ship, and impossible to find locally. Recipe collections, how-to pamphlets, specialty seeds, and novelty items all moved well through the mail. The startup cost was the price of one classified ad and a trip to the post office for a P.O. box. If the ad pulled, you reinvested in a bigger ad. If it did not, you lost $10 and tried a different product. The entire direct response marketing industry grew from kitchen tables and basement desks, proving that you did not need a warehouse to run a business. You needed an envelope and a good headline. Backyard dog breeding generated substantial income for rural and suburban families across America. A single litter of purebred Labrador Retriever puppies in the 1990s sold for $300 to $500 each. A litter of 8 meant $2,400 to $4,000 from one breeding cycle. Even mixed breeds sold for $50 to $100 through newspaper classifieds. The investment was the cost of feeding and veterinary care for the breeding pair, perhaps $500 a year. Some families kept rabbits, selling them to pet stores and directly to neighbors at $5 to $10 each. Others bred parakeets or tropical fish, turning a spare room into a small-scale operation that generated $100 to $300 a month. The ethics of backyard breeding have been debated endlessly, but the economics were undeniable. A healthy female dog could produce 2 litters a year for 4 or 5 years. For families in areas with limited employment options, that income was not trivial. It paid for school supplies, car repairs, and heating oil. Third pattern break. Here is what connects every trick on this list. Not one of them required permission. No bank loan, no business plan, no approval from anyone. Americans looked at what they already had, a spare room, a skill, a patch of dirt, and turned it into income. That instinct did not come from entrepreneurship seminars. It came from necessity. And necessity has always been the most reliable business school in the country. Number 4, watching and repairing electronics. The neighborhood TV repairman made house calls, but the real money was in the garage workshop. In the 1960s and the 1970s, a television cost the equivalent of a month's wages. Too expensive to replace and too complex for most people to fix. A man who understood vacuum tubes and circuit boards could charge $15 to $25 per repair, completing 3 or 4 jobs a day from a workbench in his garage. That was $60 to $100 a day. Radios, record players, and later VCR players and personal computers all passed through these home workshops. The parts were cheap, ordered from catalogs, and the markup was in the knowledge. When consumer electronics became disposable in the 1990s, the home repair shop lost its purpose. Nobody pays to fix a $30 DVD player, but for 30 years, the garage electronics bench was one of the most profitable square feet in the American home. Number 3, growing and selling produce from the garden. The backyard vegetable stand was America's original farm-to-table business. A quarter-acre garden could produce $2,000 worth of tomatoes, sweet corn, peppers, and squash in a single growing season. The trick was growing what the supermarket did poorly: heirloom tomatoes that actually tasted like something, sweet corn picked that morning, herbs that had not been sitting in a plastic clamshell for 2 weeks, a hand-painted sign on the mailbox, and a table at the end of the driveway were the only marketing required. In the 1950s and the 1960s, roadside produce stands lined rural highways across the Midwest and the South, many of them operating on the honor system with a tin can for payment. The overhead was seeds, water, and sweat. Everything else was profit. Today, backyard growers selling at farmers markets earn $10 to $20 an hour of garden labor, competitive with minimum wage, and conducted entirely in fresh air. The garden never stopped being a money-making trick. Americans just forgot it was one. Number 2, typing and clerical work from home. The home typist was the freelancer of the pre-digital age. College students, lawyers, and small business owners all needed documents typed. Professional typists working from home charged $1 to $2 per page in the 1970s and the 1980s. A fast typist producing 30 pages a day earned $30 to $60, solid income that required nothing beyond a typewriter, a bottle of correction fluid, and a kitchen table. Term paper season at nearby colleges meant 3 months of non-stop work. Law offices sent contracts and briefs by courier. Real estate agents needed listing sheets and offer letters. The home typist served them all, maintaining a client list through reputation alone. When personal computers arrived, the smartest typists upgraded and became desktop publishers, word processors, and data entry specialists, tripling their rates without leaving the house. The tool changed. The trick did not. If you could produce clean, accurate documents faster than other people, there was always someone willing to pay you for it. Number 1. Selling Avon, Tupperware, and direct sales products. Direct sales from the living room was the largest home-based money-making phenomenon in American history. At its peak in the 1980s, Avon had over 1.5 million representatives in the United States alone, nearly all of them working from home. A Tupperware party in 1975 generated average sales of $200, earning the hostess $30 to $50 in commissions and free products for an evening's work. The genius of the model was that it required no inventory investment, no storefront, and no special skills beyond the ability to talk to your neighbors. The Avon lady rang doorbells on her own block, took orders with a carbon copy form, and delivered products from a box in her trunk. The Tupperware hostess cleared her living room furniture, set up folding chairs, and served coffee cake while demonstrating airtight seals. In communities where women had limited access to traditional employment, direct sales provided income, social connection, and a sense of professional identity. A top Avon representative in the 1980s could earn $20,000 to $30,000 a year, entirely from home, entirely on her own schedule. Critics called it exploitative. Economists called it inefficient. But millions of American women called it the light bill, the car payment, and the kids' braces. The products were the excuse. The real trick was building a customer list that trusted you personally, buying from you because they liked you, not because they needed another tube of lipstick. That principle, that people buy from people they know, built a multi-billion-dollar industry, from living room couches and kitchen counters across every state in the Union. Here is my challenge to you. Look around your house right now, not at your phone, not at your laptop, at the physical space you are sitting in. What skill do you have that someone within 5 miles of you would pay for? What is sitting in your garage, your garden, or your spare room that could generate income by next weekend? Every trick on this list started with the same realization. You do not need to go anywhere else to make money. You need to look at where you already are and see it differently. Drop a comment telling me which of these tricks your family used. I want to know if the egg money jar was real in your house. I want to know if your grandmother sold pies, pressed shirts, or watched the neighbor's kids for cash in an envelope every Friday. These were not side hustles. That is a modern word for an ancient practice. This was Americans doing what Americans have always done, finding a way to make it work with whatever they had.